Mitch McConnell has got some gall to attack Pete Hegseth the way that he did right here regarding the Russian-Ukraine war. You guys are not going to want to miss this.
Mr. Secretary, probably won't surprise you, but I'm going to start with Ukraine. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions, but I don't want you to linger on any one of them, but answer the series of questions in one answer. Number one, who's the aggressor and who's the victim in the conflict?
Russia's the aggressor.
Which side do you want to win?
As we've said time and time again, this president is committed to peace in that conflict. Ultimately, peace serves our national interests, and we think the interest of both parties, even if that outcome will not be preferable to many in this room and many in our country.
Which side is President Xi pulling for?
Well, as was stated by both of you, we obviously understand, unfortunately, under this administration and under the previous administration and the policies they pursued, it has driven Russia and China closer together. So there's no doubt that China would prefer that Vladimir Putin have a good outcome. But it would also prefer a prolonged conflict that would keep us and other countries tied down and incapable of paying attention to the malign influence of China elsewhere.
One thing I'm sure we agree on is we don't want a headline at the end of this conflict that says Russia wins and America loses. And given the fact that all of our adversaries are communicating with each other, that's extremely important if we're going to continue to play the role in the world that the vast majority of members of Congress think we should still play, particularly now that our adversaries are more significant than they have been since the Berlin Wall came down. With regard to the money we're spending, what's the return on the investment of our security assistance to Ukraine?
Senator, I would just say, given the approach of President Trump, that's not the headline, regardless. The previous administration, under the Obama administration, Crimea was invaded, and we gave them blankets. Under President Trump, during his first term, he gave the Ukrainians javelins, and the Russians did not invade. Under Biden, the Russians did invade, and aid was slow-walked incompletely, and as a result, it became a gridlock. Thankfully, the javelins that President Trump provided actually stalled the Russian advance. Now here we are at a place where Vladimir Putin knows that President Trump is strong. He knows his word means something, and as a result, a negotiated peace in Ukraine makes America look strong, makes us look like we understand the state of the world and where we want to be focused, even if we understand that Russia's the aggressor, and we applaud the efforts of the Ukrainians. There is a moment where you have to recognize what exists on the battlefield and that a better outcome is a negotiated peace to stop the killing and stop the slaughter. And our budget reflects that perspective.
If I may, Mr. Secretary, I'm not here to defend the previous administration. They were completely inadequate anyway. And I think you could make an argument that the precipitous withdrawal from Afghanistan was like a green light to Putin. But we are where we are. And beating up the past is not a plan for going forward to the future. What has benefited the United States, I think you would agree, 38 different states have produced weapons or parts of weapons out of the money that the Ukraine supplemental package passed last year. 2 new members of NATO now increased spending by virtually all of our NATO allies, which President Trump deserves part of the credit for encouraging that. Vladimir Putin probably guaranteed it would happen. Everybody seems to be moving in the right direction. And then they look at us and wonder whether we're in the midst of brokering what appears to be allowing the Russians to define victory. I think victory is defined by the people that have to live there, the Ukrainians. And I don't think they're going to ever conclude that victory means basically adopting the Russian views on all this. So what do you make of what the Russians are up to? They don't seem to me to be too interested in talking. We want to talk. They seem to be increasing the war. What's your take on that?
Well, no one's adopting views, sir. I would say that the budget reflects the reality that Europe needs to step up more for the defense of its own continent. And President Trump deserves the credit for that. In his first term in this term, we're about to go to The Hague, where we hope most European NATO countries are going to commit to a 3.5, 1.5 to total of 5% defense spending, which was inconceivable before President Trump. And he has set the standard that America can't be everywhere all the time for everybody. And if you're a European country, you cannot freeload off of the United States in perpetuity. You are our allies and our friends, and we will stand with you, but you need to stand up in times of peace and in times of war. And this budget reflects that it's long overdue Europe does more, and that we be strategic about the outcome there, even if it's not preferable for all parties, so that our focus can turn, as was mentioned by everybody thus far, to the Indo-Pacific and our pacing threat, while Europe ensures peace on that continent. And so the budget is meant to reflect that reality. It includes hard choices. But that's been one of the things we're trying to do in this Defense Department, is make some of those hard choices alongside President Trump.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to conclude this before turning over to Senator Coons, relitigating the past, it seems to me, is not helpful. I didn't defend any of the budget submissions that the previous administration made. I had a lot of the same complaints about how they were handling this. I want to avoid that for the future. And it seems to me pretty obvious that America's reputation is on the line. Will we defend democratic allies against authoritarian aggressors? That's the international concern that I have about this. And I think a number of my members share that view.
Am I the only American who's sick of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars going to fight in a needless war over in Ukraine? I mean, give me a break right now. I find it so funny that when this war started, everybody was so quick to declare Ukraine the good guy, Russia's a terrible, bad person. Yet if you actually delve into the history, it's a lot more complicated and nuanced than you would be led to believe. If you want to know the truth about a subject, I think a good epitaph is just realize whatever the news tells you, it's a complete opposite. Because they want to say, if we don't stop this in Ukraine, then it's going to happen to the entire world. No, it's not. First of all, when the USSR disbanded, they declared the EU would not move 1 inch eastward. And what happened since then is they took over country after country after country after country. Russia went to the international court because they were violating this treaty. And what did they do? They just dismissed it because America's the big dog. America gets what they want. And eventually the EU wanted to include Ukraine, and Russia said absolutely not. Under no circumstances is that going to happen. And as a last-ditch effort to ensure that that never happens, Russia went to invade Ukraine. So I don't want to hear these Ukraine is a good guy, Russia's a bad guy. War is very nuanced and it's a very gray area. Both people have their own points of views and both people have their own perspectives. But the one perspective that I do hold very dearly is that we should not be involved in this whatsoever because America has enough problems and we need to save that money and spend it for something useful that's actually going to benefit America. Pete Hegseth, I give you credit for standing tough and fighting back against Mitch McConnell and these cronies, because in a world full of lies, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. What are your thoughts regarding the Russia-Ukraine war? Do you think we should still be involved or we should spend that money better elsewhere? Let me know. I'd love to know. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.